Good morning. This is Doug from ADVIZOR, and I want to share a few minutes, 10 to 15 minutes, on things we're doing with products and directions with our partners. This is content that was shared at our user group summit a couple months ago. So I'm going to go through the 7.0 release, which is due to be finished this quarter. It will ship right after the holidays. Then we're going to talk about after 7.0 ideas and thoughts, looking for feedback. Also, we've got a lot of things going on with a variety of partners, and there's a lot of integration capability that we're thinking about, and we'd like to just express some of it and get some feedback. So let's dive into 7.0. I'm going to take you through the first three things here, and then just talk about the last two. So we've completely redesigned the Analyst and Analyst X from a workflow standpoint and look and feel. I'll show you that in a minute. We've also turned our maps into drillable maps. So if you have a map of the U.S., you can click it, it'll drill to a state, to a metro area, so you can select around metro areas and so forth. I'll show you that. And the drillable maps will work with the current projects as published, and they will work on the Analyst X, as well as the web-based delivery and iPad. Third thing we've done is pushing through authoring edits. We'll talk about that and show you some of that. And then we've moved our help online and updated it. So a couple things here, and I'm not going to show you that, but it's online, it's searchable, it's got a whole bunch of new short videos, reference materials, help documents, and guides. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff we've done, but this is the majors. So let's dive into the new authoring, design, and workflow. To show you that, I'm actually going to drop out of the PowerPoint and just start up from my desktop. I'm going to double click on the app and just open it. You know, as usual, you can also double click on the file and we'll open the file, but I just want to show you the intro to the app, which looks quite a bit different than before. So it opens with a page. It's got some getting started tips and tricks up here, recent projects I've worked with, demo projects, a panel in the middle, which will be updated with relevant content, tips and tricks, new information on what we're doing, online help, and contact us, simple and clean. I'm going to open our demo prospect ID project. And when this comes up, you're going to see a very different look and feel, and it looks a lot more like our web delivery. And all of the ribbons, all of the task panes and like pop-up panels, we've replaced that with ribbons. So all the authoring controls are much more accessible and findable, and they're always present versus before. You know, people would say, hey, we closed the task view. How do we get it back? You have to go to a pull-down menu. All that's been replaced. So it comes up. Let's just hide the navigation pane over here. And the first thing you see is that it's a cleaner, thinner look. We've totally updated the icons, the look and feel, made it more modern. It's thinner. Like on the charts, we've removed the zoom bars and control bars. That if you mouse over them, they come up, but when you're off them, they go away. The charts have the same chart controls for authoring at the bottom that pop up as before, so that hasn't changed. The same capabilities there. It's just a thinner look. Now, there's a couple of cool things here. So it opens and analyze, so I can exclude things, restore things, select things, and all the controls are right here. I can undo, redo. My flight recorder, which tracks all my steps, colors, help, which is help for analyzing data, and then there's some controls up at the top, which get me to the project workshop, the color legend, brings back the navigation pane, helpful comments, and getting to our online help. So let me just show you, there's one cool new feature just at this level. Like if I go in here, I grab some stuff, get rid of the gray, go over here, grab some stuff. So I'm just drilling down the data, grab a few things. And I want to go back to the beginning. Before you'd have to restore the excluded and reselect everything. Now watch this. I click this one button, and it brings me right back to my filter. So it solves the problem of having to restore the exclude and reselect. One click, you're back. So there's times when you want to do that. There's times when you don't want to do that. But when you want to do it, it's much easier. Let me go through these other file. It's what used to be in the pull down. So you can start, you can save as, close, open, create, templates, product information. On the authoring side, this is hugely different because this used to be in the task view, and plus there were then a series of pull-ups in different places where you could get at all of this. Right now we've taken the same concept of loading data, designing pages, adding them, changing them and whatnot, picking charts, copying charts from one page to another, conditioning data, the workshop, expressions, linking tables, formatting dates, configuring hierarchies. It's all here on this one ribbon, and there's help here that goes to specifics for any of this. And it's searchable. It'll have reference materials and so forth. Let me just show you something here. Like if I want to add a page, I click New Page. I'm going to call it New Page. I spelled it wrong. So I want to actually adjust the page property. So let's change that. Very easy to do. I've got my new page. And let's say I want to look at, you just add a line chart because I haven't seen yet giving over time. So I can go to Pick Charts. I want to just add one of these common charts. Let's do a line chart. Click OK. I want to put it on the gifts table. I want to have the field be gift fiscal year. I want to sum the hard credits so I get totals. Cool. Here's my giving over time. Awesome. Then somebody says, but I actually want to see this cut by rating. So I said, well, on rating, I have that over here. So go to this page. I think I can copy the chart. Where would that come from? Copy chart inside ADVIZOR. So this is going to copy the chart fully configured. We've had this before. It just was hidden in a pull down. Capacity ratings, a chart. I go OK. Pop it on the new page. What do I have to do? Charts, charts. Paste chart to page. Hey, here it is. I can adjust it. Now, if I want to look at giving trends, like what's my $25,000 to $50,000 donor giving, it's been pretty flat and low. How about a mid-range, 500 to a million rated people? What about the big guys, the 50 million or more? Wow, they've been a lot of it. They've actually been lower recently. So the point here, with the authoring, we've made it really, really easy to get at it and work with it, and we've made the help much more present and visible. Let's drop out of this, go back to the PowerPoint. And the second thing I wanted to show was drillable maps. So here's a map. Bring up the project. You've got the U.S. And the problem has been in the past we've had to have separate maps. So if somebody then wanted to go to the Atlanta area and figure out a specific route around the city for their prospects, you'd have to have a map of Atlanta, which you could put in, but it was harder to get. In 7.0, there's little arrows here. This drops the map down, so it drills down. This drills it back up. So if I click this, I can then select, the Atlanta area with the mouse. It gives me first Georgia because that's where the bulk of the population is. So I see the distribution, and I can sort of see around the Atlanta area, but it's a little dense. So I click it again. We've got now 41 metro maps in here. It gives me Atlanta. And I can, with the mouse, well, I'm actually going to be up here. I want to come down the highway and go out this way. This is a route I can take, so I can select that with the mouse. I've got it. And then my list is going to then have, I can pop up the list, and here's the list of contacts I have in Atlanta that meet my criteria on that route. I can export it to Excel and say, let's do a mail merge and set these things up. So that's a huge difference in the maps, which makes it a lot easier to work with the drill down that everybody's been asking for. And as I said, this will work with all of our existing projects with the current maps that you have. You don't have to change the project. The 7.0 will work with this and provide the drill down in all of our products, the analyst, browsers off, analyst, ADVIZOR Server AE, and also iPads and iPhones off ADVIZOR Server AE. This will all work. So the third thing is pushing through authoring edits. So we have people who are doing quite complex projects, and the first thing here is you edit an expression that's then used in another expression. I don't know, it might be you're summing some form of giving, and then you got another giving that's, total lifetime credit. So you have to figure out credit properly. There's an expression for that. Then it goes in total lifetime credit. What this capability does, it will figure out all the derivative steps to changing this first expression. It'll look down the chain, and it will tell you if anything's going to break and warn you, because in some cases you can make a change that a chart may not be able to plot, or there's some field that changes type that something's not going to like. So it'll tell you that and warn you and tell you what's going to break. It gives you the option to continue or not. If you continue, it pushes it through immediately in the project you're working on. You don't need to go and reload data. You don't need to manually push it down the chain. Another more complicated one is sometimes you'll have a table, say it's giving, and you want to create a derivative table of, giving in the last 5 years for some subcategory. So you can create a key in the giving table for that condition. You roll that table up, or you create another table that's based on that condition. Then that table has a bunch of calculations that maybe are copied back to the entity table. So if you change that roll-up key, it's going to change the roll-up table, which is going to then change a bunch of expressions, which are then going to change the copies, which are then going to change what's manifested in charts coming off another table. In 7.0, again, when you try to make that change, it's going to look down and ask all the steps along the way. Is this okay? What's going to happen? Will you be able to do the right thing? And it'll tell you, if you do this chart on page whatever that's a line chart isn't going to be able to draw because the data's not going to work or whatever. And if you choose to continue, it'll push it through. The chart will be undrawn, but it'll work through everything else. If everything's fine, it'll tell you everything's fine, and it'll push it all the way through, and you'll see the results immediately. Another one is changing field names. You, in the current releases, can change field names. It's a little bit rugged. This you can change any field name, and it will push through the entire project immediately and save and sustain. That's because often you get these crazy column names in the database that you want to make something simpler out of. So this is actually, at this level, it seems fairly straightforward, but this is a really rich and huge feature improvement for anybody who's a power author. And it's a fundamental. It's actually in our source system. It's been called Feature 1 because it's been kicking around for so long. And finally, we got to it, and this is a huge authoring improvement. So that's 7.0. It's coming out. If you guys want beta, just let me know. It's in final test right now, so we're actually well past beta. I think we're in release candidate 3 or 4. So after 7.0, a bunch of feedback. We discussed this at the user group. What jumped up to the top of the list, and these are the list of things we presented, was 2 things: the data load project that feeds other, and server end user customization. So the concept here is a number of you have a bunch of projects, in some cases up to 50, that load roughly the same data and have calculations in them and so forth. So why couldn't we have a project that loads data, does a bunch of calculations, and then becomes a data source for other derivative projects? So if you, for example, have attachment scores that are in several projects, with this data load project, you do them in one project that would then feed other derivative projects. So it would load first, and then the other projects would inherit the data from that. That's had really positive feedback, and it's highly likely to be in the next work efforts after we get 7.0 out the door. Another one that's came from, we did some on-site days with end users, and a number of you have large projects. Some of you call them kitchen sink projects, and a variety of people use them. Some people use the first 3 pages, some people use the 5 pages in the middle, some people use the 4 pages on the right. So how cool would it be if the user could basically rearrange their project and only show some pages, delete other pages, and it would save that, so when they came back, they'd have like their customized version of the project based on how they choose to work with it. You'd have one published project, but it would manifest different ways. This would also have the capability, we've had some comments that, somebody's doing some work on the web version, and then they get called out of their office, and that thing is set to time out for security purposes. Usually the timing is set for 15, 20 minutes. So if you come back, you've timed out, you're back to the beginning. What if when it timed out, it saved your state, so when you jump back in, it brought you right back to where you were? That's the kinds of things we're thinking about here. We're also looking at different data load filters, so you don't have to write SQL if you're doing queries on databases when you load. We'll see more of this, but there's a bunch of write-back stuff to partners we're looking at. So feedback on this. One click to select and exclude. So we've had some feedback here that there's projects where, especially with field officers, if you're selecting and excluding, people don't want, so we have you select data and then you still have the gray, which is the rest of the population, because for analytics, you actually want to see the selection and compare it to everything else and see concentrations. That's why we do that. So for prospect research, annual giving, and security analytics, all that kind of stuff, that's really important. But for a field officer who's literally trying to just slice the list down, what if we could publish a project with the option to have you click on something on the chart and it selects and excludes all at once? So it basically selects and then gets rid of the gray. author's option. So some projects you would not want that, others you would. Guided analysis we're playing around with. There's a lot of writing about somebody has a question, can we just show them the answer? You know, take them through the right set of clicks or bring up the right charts on a page. This is more conceptual right now. We're looking for input on it. And then Google Maps. Our maps are currently drillable. You've seen them. We're not importing Google Maps, so they're not infinitely drillable. We're wondering if that is still a need, and if so, at what level. We've done a bunch of user surveys, and it seems like the problem that we needed to solve was you've got like a geographic distribution. People want to get routes around a city to see what's possible. The Google Maps would give you the capability more for navigation, and at the time you're in the field adjusting. Our feedback has been people generally use their phone to do that with the mapping app. They're using our thing to get a list of people they want to then mail merge a phone to set appointments up, not use it on the fly. We're opening this and looking for more feedback. So far, the research has said that these drillable maps should solve the completely the issue that has been on the table with the non-drillable maps. So I'm looking for feedback on this. Then we are working with a bunch of partners. The platforms, Blackbaud, Agile, and Ellucian, some of the data providers, Wealth Engine, Hep Data Touchpoints. PledgeMine is a custom printing company and annual giving. Omatic is a data connector for primarily Razor's Edge. Rapid Insights is our source of analytics and data blending, and then some of the consulting firms. So some of the cool things we're talking about here, again, feedback, looking for it. So suppose you create content in Advisor and push it back to the CRM, for example, attachment scores. We are a sandbox where it's really easy to create cross-table metrics and do modeling, but then the scores end up in Advisor, not in Razor's Edge or not in Ellucian, so the other reporting systems don't get them. And our scores update daily, so this isn't like a static thing. This is something that have to be in some form of production. But what if, you know, we load the data, we create the scores, we push them back to the CRM. Another example would be parsed employment titles. So we do a lot of work like taking these titles are like all over the place, but you want bins like C-level, upper management, mid-management, because this is relative to capacity. What if you could parse them in our world and push them back to the CRM? How would that be valuable? In what cases? What would be the use cases for that? The thing about doing it in our world is more flexible because, you know, you parse these titles and then they come in yet another way. So if this is in the database, some database person has to keep changing, and it's actually easier to create these things, especially when they're cross-table in our world. So we're wondering about this capability because as Ellucian and Blackbaud in particular move to new platforms, their APIs are getting better, and it's easier to push things back and forth. Another one is you cut the list in Advisor and then push it back to CRM. For example, patients who live in wealthy zips and have high patient potential. In our world, we can grab the patient data, we can flag it with like public domain zip information for some proxy for wealth. We can create scoring potential based on their experience. So you cut 100,000 patients down to 10,000 who you then want in the CRM. What if that could just be a one-click push button versus an export to CSV file and import? We're working on that, looking for feedback. Another one is you cut the list in Advisor and send it to one of our partners like Wealth Engine to get screened or Hep Data to get appointment data added onto it, then drop it back into the CRM. What about if you cut the list? This is the same, two partners here. And what if you, another one is suppose you're working with Advisor and you've got this list of, you know, you got it down to 5 people and you actually want to see the prospect profiles. What if you could just click on them in the data sheet and they'd pop up in the CRM profile like Razor's Edge or Ellucian? So, you know, those systems already have the prospect profiles. We don't want to recreate them because they're formatted and have all the right content, but we're the one where you can like slice and dice the list. What if you could just click and go back to that? So what we're looking for here is kind of like votes. I mean, this is a lot of stuff, especially when you combine it with the stuff over here that we're going to do in our own product. This is in our world. This second page of stuff is stuff that we're looking at doing with our partners, but we're looking for feedback. So appreciate it. You just send me an email, say, Doug, you know, we really like 1 and 2 here and whatever. And here's my email contact. So 7.0 is coming. You'll see it soon. We'll push it out right after the holidays and appreciate your feedback. And thanks for your continued support.